Princess Liara of the Valari Empire stood in the grand hall of her palace, her long silver hair falling over her shoulders. The Valari court was alive with the low hum of conversation, officials whispering about her future. She clenched her hands, tightly. Her heart raced, but not with excitement. Fear and anger swirled inside her. "Princess Liara," her mother said softly, "you must accept this. The treaty cannot wait." Liara turned to her mother, her violet eyes flashing. "Mother, a human, she said, disbelief shaking her voice. "How can they think this is suitable? Humans are unpredictable, weak, beneath us." Her mother sighed. "Liara, this is not about what you think or feel. The peace of our empire depends on it. Earth is a rising power. Captain Elias Gray is their finest representative. You marrying him will ensure our worlds remain safe." Liara's chest tightened. She had grown up hearing stories of humans, stories that painted them as chaotic, impulsive, and strange. She had never met one, but her mind already rejected the idea of sharing her life with a human. "I will not do this. I refuse," she said, her voice steady, though trembling inside. "You will," her mother said firmly. "Refusal is not an option for a princess of the Valari. Your duty comes before your heart." Liara swallowed hard. Duty. That word always carried a weight she resented. She had spent her life training, studying, and observing the intricacies of her empire. She had imagined a life filled with choice, not one dictated by politics. And now, she was being sent across the stars to marry a human she had never seen. Titi, Valari transport that would take her to Earth awaited in the royal hangar. Liara moved through the palace corridors, her dress flowing behind her. The silver walls of the palace seemed colder than usual, reflecting her own icy feelings. Servants bowed as she passed, but she did not notice them. She could only think of the human waiting for her. The journey through space was long, and Liara spent it alone, gazing out at the stars. She thought about humans, about their strange reputation for being emotional, unpredictable, and sometimes reckless. How could someone like that be suitable for a princess? She clenched her fists, trying to banish the fear that began to creep in. When the transport arrived at the neutral space station near Earth, Liara's escort announced her arrival. The station was bustling with activity, humans moving in every direction. She stepped out, her heart hammering. Humans looked very different from the Valari, shorter, less graceful, but energetic. She fought to hide her disdain. "Princess Liara," a voice said calmly. Liara turned. A man approached, tall but not overly so, with dark hair and kind eyes. His posture was confident yet relaxed. There was something in the way he moved that made Liara pause. "I am Captain Elias Gray," he said, bowing slightly in respect. "It is an honor to meet you." Liara stiffened. He seemed ordinary, not weak, not foolish, just human. She raised an eyebrow. "The honor is mine," she said cautiously, testing his character with her words. Before more could be said, alarms blared through the station. Lights flashed red. A mechanical failure had triggered a containment breach. Gas hissed from nearby pipes and people shouted as the station shook. Liara's fear spiked, and she realized she was in danger. Elias acted without hesitation. He grabbed her hand. "This way! Quickly!" he shouted, guiding her through the chaos. Liara followed, her fear mixing with confusion. He moved with skill, checking the paths ahead and keeping them safe. When a panel exploded near their path, he shielded her with his own body, taking the brunt of the force. Liara gasped, stepping back. She could not hide her shock. You risked yourself for me?" she asked. Her voice was trembling. Elias smiled slightly. "Of course. That is what anyone would do. You are a guest here, princess. Safety comes first." Liara's mind struggled to process this. Humans were supposed to be reckless, selfish, or chaotic. Yet here was one, risking his life for her, acting with courage and care. She could feel a flicker of curiosity growing inside her. Even as she fought to maintain her icy composure, the station's emergency systems activated, sealing the affected areas. The threat passed, but Liara's heart still raced. She studied Elias as he checked the last of the corridors. His calm, measured actions contrasted sharply with the chaos surrounding them. Thank you, she said finally, her voice quieter than before. You acted admirably. Elias inclined his head. You are welcome, Princess, but it is my duty. I would do the same for anyone in danger. Liara turned away, uncertain of what she felt. Part of her still resented this marriage, but another, one she did not yet understand, could not ignore the impression this human had made on her. He was not weak. He was not foolish. He was kind. The rest of the journey to Earth passed without incident, but Liara's mind replayed the events over and over. She studied Elias quietly, noting his actions, his speech, his careful attention to her comfort. With every small gesture, the image of humans she had carried in her mind began to shift. By the time they arrived on Earth, Liara's initial fear had not disappeared, but it had changed. She still dreaded the political obligations, the loss of freedom, and the uncertainty of marrying a human. Yet a small spark of interest, curiosity mixed with respect, had been ignited. The human she was supposed to dread had shown her that courage and kindness could exist in ways she had never imagined, and though she would not admit it yet, she wondered what she might learn from him in the days to come. The stage was set. Princess Liara, proud and wary, had crossed the stars. A human awaited her, and neither knew that the first meeting, the one she had dreaded, would change both their lives in ways they could not yet foresee. Princess Liara stepped off the transport and onto the bustling Earth space station. Her violet eyes scanned the crowd, noting the humans rushing in all directions. Their movements were hurried and sometimes clumsy, but there was energy and life in every step. She straightened her posture and adjusted her ceremonial robes. She would not show fear. She would not show doubt. Captain Elias Gray waited for her near the docking bay. He stood tall, his dark eyes calm but alert. He had studied the Valari from afar, prepared for their customs, and knew that first impressions would be important. Liara's reputation as a proud and distant princess preceded her, and he had learned to expect caution and skepticism. Princess Liara, he said again, bowing slightly. Welcome to Earth. Liara gave a small nod. Thank you, Captain Gray. Your planet, it is lively, she said carefully, trying to hide her judgment. Elias smiled politely. Yes, it has its challenges, but humans adapt quickly. I hope you find it interesting. Before Liara could respond, a loud alarm echoed through the station. Red lights flashed and the floor vibrated slightly under their feet. Liara's heart leapt. She had hoped her first day on Earth would be calm, but apparently fate had other plans. Follow me, Elias said, taking her hand. Liara hesitated. For a brief moment, this closeness was foreign, but she allowed him to lead her. The station was in chaos. Smoke hissed from a ruptured pipe, and maintenance bots scurried about. Humans shouted and ran, some tripping over equipment. Liara's instincts told her to flee, but Elias remained steady. He guided her through the crowded corridors, checking every turn before they passed. Princess, stay close to me, he said calmly. We need to get to a safe zone. Liara's heart pounded. And if we can't? She asked, her voice sharp. Elias glanced at her briefly. Then we adapt. Humans always find a way. A panel above them sparked violently and a burst of fire shot out. Without hesitation, Elias pushed Liara to the side, taking the full force of the heat against his shoulder. She gasped and stepped back, staring at him in shock. He brushed off the smoke from his jacket and continued guiding her. You risked yourself for me, she said, her voice trembling. Why? Elias didn't flinch. Because it is the right thing to do. No one deserves harm if it can be prevented. You are a guest here, Princess. Liara blinked. She had expected humans to act selfishly, but this man's actions contradicted everything she had heard. He was brave, careful, and kind. Her pride told her to be offended that a human could be so noble, but her heart could not deny the respect she felt. They reached a secure chamber and the alarms finally stopped. The station's safety systems had contained the fire and gas leak. Liara leaned against the wall, catching her breath. She studied Elias more closely. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, but his eyes remained calm. There was no arrogance, no fear, only focus. You handled that well, she said after a moment, her tone less cold than before. Elias nodded. It was necessary. Everyone has a role to play in a crisis. I just happened to be the one leading you this time. Liara tilted her head, studying him. Humans were supposed to be impulsive, unpredictable, sometimes reckless. Yet Elias had been measured, courageous, and thoughtful. He was extraordinary in a way she had not anticipated. Tell me, she said quietly, are humans always so careful? Elias chuckled softly. Not always, but we try. When it matters most, we act. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. Liara's heart stirred. She could feel the walls she had built around herself begin to shift. She did not fully trust him yet. She was a princess, and trust was earned. But something about his presence felt different, honest, steady, real. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Liara followed Elias through the station, observing humans at work. They were curious and inventive, always. Princess Liara stood on the observation deck of Earth's research facility, her violet eyes scanning the planet below. Vast oceans, bright cities, and swirling clouds stretched across the view. She had seen star systems before, but Earth felt alive in a different way. The humans below were bustling, inventive, and unpredictable. She tried to hide her fascination, reminding herself that her duty was to the Valari Empire. Captain Elias Gray stood beside her, quietly explaining the workings of Earth's cities and technology. His tone was patient, almost teacher-like, and Liara noticed the way he tried to bridge their cultural gap. You see, Princess, Elias said, pointing toward a network of sky bridges. Humans build and rebuild constantly. Adaptation is part of our nature. We learn from mistakes and try again. It is messy at times, but it works. Liara frowned. She had grown up in a culture where precision and tradition mattered above all. Chaos was a threat, not a tool. Messy? She asked, her voice tight. It seems disorganized. How can humans maintain control? Elias smiled. We do not control everything, but we adapt. Sometimes that is more important than control. Liara folded her arms, studying him. He spoke confidently, yet there was no arrogance. She could not deny that humans were resourceful, and Elias was the best example. Still, her pride resisted admiration. She would not let herself admire a human too openly. Their tour of the city continued. They walked through busy markets, crowded plazas, and research labs. Liara observed humans interacting, solving problems, and helping one another. Some were clumsy, some loud, some strange, but all were trying. She could not help but notice the ingenuity in small actions, a worker improvising a repair, a scientist calmly solving a sudden problem, a child showing curiosity without fear. At one point, Liara accidentally tripped over a low rail. Before she could recover, Elias caught her arm and steadied her. Careful, Princess, these things are easy to overlook. She pulled back slightly, annoyed at needing help, but could not ignore the warmth in his concern. Thank you. She muttered. Elias shrugged. It is nothing. Humans help one another, it is natural. Later, they entered a council hall where Earth diplomats awaited them. Liara's eyes scanned the room. Humans and Valari alike were seated, discussing the details of the peace treaty. She felt the weight of responsibility pressing on her. One wrong word, One wrong gesture, and the fragile alliance could shatter. A minor disagreement arose between a human diplomat and a Valari noble over resource allocation. Voices rose, tempers flared. Liara felt herself bristle, ready to assert her authority. "Princess, leave this to me," Elias whispered. "Observe and speak only if necessary." He stood and calmly addressed the room. "We must find a solution that respects both sides. Focus on common ground, not differences." His voice was firm but kind. Slowly, the tension in the room eased. The diplomats nodded and the argument dissolved into polite discussion. Liara's eyes widened. He had handled the situation with tact, skill, and patience, qualities she had believed were rare among humans. She felt a small spark of admiration. Perhaps humans were capable of more than she had imagined. The day continued, and they encountered more cultural surprises. Liara tasted human food for the first time, spicy, unusual, and flavorful. She wrinkled her nose but found herself intrigued by the complexity of flavors. She watched humans laugh, sing, and sometimes act in ways that seemed illogical. Yet behind their laughter was cooperation, ingenuity, and care for one another. Liara began to see the beauty in imperfection, the strength in flexibility. As the sun set over Earth, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Elias led Liara to a quiet park near the city. Trees swayed gently, and humans strolled along, pathways enjoying the evening. Liara finally allowed herself to breathe, feeling a calmness she had not expected. "Captain," she said quietly, "I admit, your people are different than I imagined. Perhaps not as chaotic as I feared." Elias smiled. "Different, yes. Humans are not perfect, but we try. And sometimes, trying is enough to change outcomes." Liara looked away, her pride mingling with curiosity. She had spent her life believing humans were beneath her. Now she felt her perspective shifting. It was subtle, a flicker of understanding, but it was there. They sat on a bench in silence, watching the city lights twinkle. Liara felt the weight of her mission, the pressure of duty, and the uncertainty of the future. Yet she also felt something new, a cautious respect for the human beside her. "I will not lie," Liara said after a moment. "I am still unsure about this union. I do not fully trust humans yet. But you have shown me another side. Perhaps there is more to learn." Elias nodded. "That is all I ask, Princess. Open your mind, observe, and you may find things that surprise you." Liara considered his words. For the first time, she allowed herself to hope that this journey might be different than she had feared. Perhaps she could find common ground with humans. Perhaps she could even respect them. As night fell over Earth, Princess Liara realized that her journey was only beginning. The world was vast, the humans were unpredictable, and Captain Elias Gray was unlike anyone she had ever known. She did not yet understand him fully, but she knew one thing. This human could change more than just the future of the treaty. He could change her heart. The shuttle descended through the atmosphere of a remote planet where both humans and Valari were working together on a peace project. The planet, named Halora, was calm and quiet, its skies tinted green and its surface covered with forests and rolling plains. For Princess Liara, it was far from the grand halls of her homeworld, but it was also far from Earth's crowded cities. Captain Elias Gray sat across from her inside the shuttle. His calm presence filled the small cabin. Liara pretended to look out the window. Though her eyes often drifted back to him, she still felt uncertain about this journey. But the more time she spent near him, the more her heart softened against her will. When they landed, the team of humans and Valari greeted them warmly. Their task was to oversee the building of a research outpost, a joint effort to symbolize trust. Liara and Elias were assigned to remain together during the mission. To Liara's surprise, Elias did not treat her as a fragile figure. Instead, he worked alongside her, explained tasks clearly, and even allowed her to lead in discussions. The days passed quickly. Liara observed Elias as he repaired equipment, coordinated workers, and listened patiently to concerns. He treated everyone with the same respect, human or Valari, noble or worker. It was strange for Liara, who had been raised in a society where rank defined worth. She began to wonder if humans had discovered something her people had overlooked. One evening, as the sky of Halora darkened into shades of blue and gold, Liara and Elias walked near the forest edge. The air was cool, filled with the soft hum of strange insects. "Princess," Elias said, glancing at her, "do you ever grow tired of the weight of duty?" Liara blinked at his question. Few dared to speak so openly to her. "Duty defines us," she replied carefully. "Without it, we are nothing. I was raised to serve my empire." Elias nodded. "I understand. But duty without choice, it can be heavy." Liara studied him. His words struck something inside her. For years, she had buried her own desires beneath expectations. She wanted to ask him how humans carried such burdens differently, but her pride kept her silent. The silence was broken by a sudden tremor in the ground. The forest shook, and birds scattered into the sky. A deep rumble echoed, and then a landslide roared down the hillside near the outpost. Alarms blared, and workers shouted in fear. "Come on," Elias shouted, grabbing Liara's arm as debris tumbled toward them. They sprinted, dodging falling rocks and branches. Liara's breath came fast, her heart pounding. She had faced ceremonies, debates, and politics, but never raw nature like this. A massive tree crashed across their path, trapping them away from the others. Dust filled the air. Liara coughed, her eyes wide with fear. "We are cut off." Elias scanned the surroundings. "Quickly, we'll find another way. Stay with me." They moved carefully through the wreckage, climbing over fallen logs and weaving between shattered trees. Liara's robes caught on branches, and Elias cut them free with a small tool. When she stumbled, he offered his hand without hesitation. At last they reached a sheltered cave. The tremors subsided, but the path back to the outpost was blocked. Night fell quickly, and strange animal calls echoed in the distance. Liara sat on a stone, her pride breaking under exhaustion. For the first time in many years, she admitted her fear out loud. "Elias, I am afraid." He knelt beside her, his voice steady. "It is normal to be afraid. Even the strongest feel fear. But we face it together." Liara's eyes stung with unspoken emotion. She had been trained to hide weakness, to wear a mask of strength. Yet here, in the quiet of a cave, on an alien world, she found comfort in his simple honesty. "How do humans do this?" she asked softly. "How do you carry so much and still smile?" Elias smiled faintly. "We lean on one another. We don't carry burdens alone. When one person stumbles, another helps them forward. That is how we survive." His words settled, deep in her heart. She had always believed survival came from strength, from control. But Elias showed her another way, one built on trust and kindness. They spent the night in the cave. Elias kept watch, ensuring no danger approached. Liara drifted in and out of sleep, her thoughts filled with conflicting emotion. The royal palace of the Valari Empire shimmered with crystal towers that touched the sky. Princess Liara walked through its wide halls, her mind heavier than ever. Returning home should have brought her comfort, but instead, it filled her with unease. The peace treaty with Earth was not as secure as she had believed. Whispers followed her wherever she went. Nobles in fine robes watched her with cold eyes. Some bowed politely, but others turned away with disdain. Liara knew why. Many of them did not approve of her union with a human. To them, marrying Captain Elias Gray was not diplomacy, it was humiliation. That evening, Liara stood in the council chamber beside Elias. The hall glowed with soft light, its walls lined with the banners of her people. Valari nobles filled the room, their voices rising in debate. "This treaty is an insult," one shouted. "Humans are unpredictable, they cannot be trusted." They are not our equals, another added. To tie our royal blood to theirs is madness. Liara clenched her fists, her pride burning. She wanted to defend Elias, but her voice faltered under the weight of so many stares. Elias, however, remained calm. He did not react with anger or insult. Instead, he stood tall, his expression steady. "Princess," Elias whispered gently to her side. "Let them speak. Truth will reveal itself in action, not words." Liara swallowed her frustration and nodded. She admired his patience, though she knew the nobles saw it as weakness. Later, in the quiet of her chambers, Liara paced restlessly. She could not stay silent forever. Her loyalty was divided, between her people who expected her to uphold tradition and the human who had shown her kindness and courage. As she paced, her handmaiden slipped into the room, her face pale. "Princess, I must tell you something. A group of nobles is plotting to sabotage the treaty. They believe if the marriage fails, the alliance will collapse. They plan to strike tomorrow during the council gathering." Liara froze. Her heart pounded. "Sabotage?" The handmaiden nodded. "Yes, Princess. They will make it seem as if the humans broke the peace." Liara dismissed the handmaiden and sat heavily on her chair. Her mind raced. If she stayed silent, her people's scheme might succeed. But Earth would be blamed. The treaty would shatter and Elias would suffer the consequences. If she revealed the plan, she would betray her own nobles and risk being branded a traitor. Elias entered the chamber quietly, sensing her distress. "What is it?" he asked. Liara hesitated, then told him everything. When she finished, she expected him to be angry, but instead he nodded thoughtfully. "This is not unexpected," he said, softly. "Fear makes people desperate, but we cannot let fear destroy what we are building." Liara stared at him, her chest tightening. "Do you not hate them? They plot against you, against us." Elias shook his head. "I don't hate them. I understand them. But understanding does not mean allowing harm. We will stop them, together." The next day, the council chamber filled again. Nobles took their places and humans stood on the other side. Tension thickened the air. Liara sat with Elias at the center, her heart racing. She knew the conspirators would act soon. As the debate began, one of the nobles stepped forward dramatically. "Humans are liars," he declared, slamming a document onto the table. "Here is proof they plan to seize our colonies." Gasps filled the hall. Liara recognized the document instantly. It was forged. She stood before Elias could speak. Her voice rang clear across the chamber. "That paper is false, and I know who made it." The chamber erupted in shock. All eyes turned to her. Liara lifted her chin proudly. "Last night I learned of this plot. Certain nobles wish to destroy peace, not for the good of our empire, but to protect their pride." Murmurs spread. The accused nobles tried to protest, but Elias stepped forward. He placed the forged document on the scanner at the council table. The display revealed clear signs of tampering. Gasps echoed again. Elias spoke calmly. "We do not come to take from the Velari. We come to share. My people seek peace, not conquest. This marriage, this treaty, is not a chain. It is a bridge." His words carried weight, not because they were loud or forceful, but because they were honest. Liara's heart swelled with pride. For the first time, she saw her people falter under the strength of human integrity. Slowly, heads bowed in reluctant agreement. The council declared the conspirators guilty of treachery. Guards escorted them out. When the chamber finally quieted, Liara turned to Elias. For a moment, she simply looked at him. She had feared this union, resisted it with all her heart, but now she understood something deeper. Elias had not only defended himself, he had defended her, defended peace, defended the future. That night, Liara and Elias stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing city below. The wind was cool, carrying the scent of flowers from the palace gardens. "I thought I had to choose," Liara said softly. "Between my people and you. Between loyalty and my heart. But today I learned something. Elias tilted his head. What is that? That loyalty is not blind obedience, she whispered. True loyalty is to what is right, and today I chose that. Elias smiled gently. Then you chose well, Princess. Liara looked at him, her chest tightening with emotions she could no longer deny. Her dread of this marriage was gone, replaced by trust and admiration. For the first time, she saw her future not as a burden, but as a chance. For peace, for strength, and perhaps for love. The hall of the Grand Palace on Xyrath shone brighter than ever before. Banners of blue and silver hung from the tall walls, and golden lights danced across the polished stone floors. The day everyone had waited for had finally come. The official union of Princess Seraphina of Xyrath and Prince Elias of Earth. But it was not just a wedding. It was a symbol of peace, a bridge between two civilizations that had once looked at each other with doubt and fear. Now thousands of guests from both worlds filled the palace, waiting to see history change before their eyes. Seraphina stood in her chamber, dressed in an elegant gown, woven with glowing threads of her people's craftsmanship. Her crown shimmered, like starlight, yet her hands trembled as she touched the mirror. She had faced battles, diplomacy, and doubts, but nothing had felt as heavy as this moment. Beside her stood Mira, her most trusted handmaiden. You look radiant, Princess, Mira said softly. But I see worry in your eyes. Do you regret this path? Seraphina shook her head slowly. No, Mira. I once feared marrying a human. But Elias has shown me a heart stronger than any weapon and gentler than any song. I only fear if I can live up to the hope this union represents. Mira smiled warmly. You already have. You changed, and in doing so, you changed him too. Together, you will guide both worlds. At the same time, Elias stood in another chamber. His attire was simpler compared to the Xyrath tradition, yet he wore a cloak gifted by Seraphina's family, stitched with her house's crest. Captain Hale, one of his closest Earth companions, clapped his shoulder. You sure about this? Hale asked with a grin. A whole galaxy is watching you today. No pressure. Elias chuckled nervously. Thanks for reminding me. But yes, I'm sure. Seraphina is more than a princess to me. She's someone I'd stand beside in any storm. Hale nodded. Then go stand beside her in this one too. Moments later, the great doors of the hall opened. Music from both worlds blended, a mix of Earth strings and Xyrath's glowing harmonics, filling the air with a melody no one had heard before. The guests stood as Seraphina entered, her steps slow but steady. Across the long hall, Elias waited at the altar. When their eyes met, the noise, the crowd, the weight of history, all seemed to fade. For a moment, it was only them. Seraphina's lips curved into a faint smile, and Elias felt his nervousness melt away. The Grand Counselor of Xyrath raised his hand, calling for silence. His voice carried across the hall. Today we witness not only the joining of two hearts, but the joining of two worlds. Where once there was fear, now there will be unity. Where once there was distance, now there will be trust. As the vows began, Seraphina spoke first. Her voice was strong, yet tender. Elias, when I first heard of you, I dreaded this bond. I thought humans were reckless, dangerous, and unworthy of Xyrath. But you showed me kindness when you could have shown pride. You listened when others only demanded. You saw me not as a princess, but as a person. For that I give you not only my hand, but my heart. A quiet murmur of approval spread through the hall. Even the most doubtful Xyrath nobles lowered their heads in respect. Elias then spoke, his words steady and full of warmth. Seraphina, when I came here, I thought I was a pawn in politics. I thought this was just duty. But you taught me what it means to lead with compassion, to fight with honor, and to care beyond oneself. You made me see a future where humans and Xyrathians are not rivals but family. Today I vow to protect that future with you. Tears shone in Seraphina's eyes. For the first time in many years, she felt free, unchained from her fears. The Grand Counselor raised his arms. Then, By the bond of honor and the blessing of both worlds, let this union be sealed. The hall erupted in cheers as Elias and Seraphina joined hands. The sound was not just celebration, it was relief. Old walls of distrust were breaking, and bridges of hope were rising in their place. Later that night, the palace garden became alive with laughter, music, and light. Delegates from Earth shared stories with Zyrath nobles, and children of both worlds played together under the stars. For once, there were no barriers of culture, only joy. Sci-Fi,